Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY Richardson, platinum songwriter, platinum artist, StraightGameTV. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, give me the thumbs up. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna get right into it. This question came in from a young man who saw my last video, and his question was because he never heard of anything about the Tupac. Warner Brothers had a $80 million deal on the table for Tupac. And I'll tell you from my perspective and facts that I know that it was absolutely positively true. And the people who were close to Tupac or close to the music industry, like I said before, knew that this was on the table. And like I said, so I'll give it to you like this. Like I said before, you know that Tupac was dating Kadada. She was there in Vegas when he got shot. And she was also there in Vegas when he passed. And so with that being said, the deal came about through Quincy Jones.
At 10 o'clock at the dot, you know, she came and said, Mr. Shakur's here. And he said to tell you he's going to go back home and put on a shirt and a tie because he didn't know it was this kind of place. And he came back and he was showing some props, you know. And that was beautiful because it was, and from there on in, it was just, he and Kadada and I and the lady I was with, we sat in the bar and talked for a long time. And it's amazing.
You must understand, I don't come without a confirmation. And this, like I said, Tupac had lawyers watching lawyers. Mr. Ogletree, who was also representing Tupac when David Kenner was allegedly representing him, should I say. And it says, by the late spring, Ogletree says, who was Tupac's lawyer, Tupac was carefully plotting his escape. He had euthanasia, as I said. He had the Outlaws. He had his movie deals. He was building something that was all to be a part of one entity. And that one entity was that $80 million multimedia deal with Warner Brothers that they had on the table. Like I told you, he had a strategy. The idea was to maintain a friendly relationship with Suge, but to separate his business. The precedent of Dr. Dre's departure from Death Row did not seem especially encouraging. A music business executive who was friendly with Dr. Dre says that Dre left because he was uncomfortable with Knight's business practices. Dre abandoned his interest in the company in return for a relatively modest financial settlement, and Interscope facilitated the divorce by giving him a lucrative new contract. So Dre didn't totally leave with nothing. Jimmy Iovine took care of him. As you see, they head to head right now on that billionaire move. He said, look at Dre. Ogletree says, such a brilliant creative musician, he started Death Row, and in order to get out, he had to give up almost everything. Now, what would it take for Tupac, the hottest star around, whose success was only growing? From a legal standpoint, Ogletree said, it was not difficult. The contract signed in prison could be challenged. Y'all hear that? This is his lawyer talking, y'all. And so what I'm telling you, you know, and probably what Mr. Ogletree also knew, you know, was about the $80 million multimedia deal. Facts. You know what I mean? So if you're a corporate entity, you know what I mean, you know, getting him out of jail, like I said, which most people didn't know at that time, was nothing. And like I said, Tupac was he was $2 million in the hole when he got out of jail. The 1.4 million, like I said, the 600,000 that they gave him while he was in jail to help pay his legal fees. So like I said, when he came home, All Eyes on Me went straight out of the stratosphere. You know what I mean? So all of that money, that bail money, all of that stuff, that was made back already. He had recouped everything. He was basically in the green. And so people were thinking, oh, you know, Suge Knight did this, that, and the other. But no, like I said, Suge Knight didn't have any financial ties to Tupac, right? He had no control over Tupac's music, anything like that. The thing that gave Suge Knight some kind of financial interest or tie to Tupac was that one-page agreement which allowed Suge Knight to be Tupac's manager. You get it? Because if Tupac was signed to Death Row, why would Suge Knight need to be his manager? You have him under contract as a recording artist. That's much more lucrative than being a manager. And anybody in the business know that. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. So that's why they had Tupac sign that one-page agreement saying that Suge Knight would be Tupac's manager and David Cannon would be his lawyer. Because Suge Knight said, well, if he coming to Death Row and he not really going to be signed to Death Row, then what's going to be my benefit? You know what I mean? The benefit would be is you could be his manager. Boom. You see how that floated? Okay, now, also, Suge Knight, like I said before, got a $4 million publishing deal from Warner Brothers also, Warner Tamberlane Publishing. So that was another, you know, benefit that came about, and, you know, like I said, in the whole business relationship of anything, but more importantly, him having Tupac sign that paper saying that Suge Knight would be my manager. And that gave Suge Knight an invested interest in Tupac's foreseeable future, if you will. So now, there you have it. The $80 million deal, like I said, I showed you that on the day that Tupac died, also in the last video, that September 13th, 1996, that Warner Brothers had gave REM, the rock group REM, an $80 million deal also. So those are the type of deals that they were giving out back then. You know what I mean? That was like the first rock group ever to get that. And like I said, with Tupac, what the record sales it did for All Eyes on Me, it was nothing to give him $80 million. And then knowing that he would be doing films, he would be doing music, he would have other groups, he could do books, he could do movies, all of those things. Come on. You know what I mean? That was nothing to throw his way. And like I said, you know, from my understanding, Quincy Jones help facilitate that deal. So if you understand everything that I'm telling you and how it's all interwoven together, you'll get it. You know what I mean? And understanding that. But yes, that's definitely 100% a fact. You know what I mean? For all of the people who knew about it. Now, when I talked to Tupac, I talked to him. We were at the House of Blues, and this is the question that I asked him. I said, "Yo, I asked him, yo, how did about the situation? I'm like, how did you get under Death Row when you was under Interscope, right?" And I knew they were both, you know how sometimes you see the beef, even the beef between Kanye West and Drake or whatever. You know, they under the same label, they under the same umbrella. It'd be Universal, it'd be Warner Brothers, you know what I mean? But they got the public thinking, you know, just to garner up the publicity, that they're going at it with each other, right? So I asked Tupac, I said, "Yo, how did you manage to go from Interscope to Death Row?" And he just looked at me and he laughed, right? And then I asked him, I said, "Yo, do you like it on Death Row? Like, you know, is it cool?" You know what I mean? Because I wanted to know, because all of the drama that was going on. Like I said, it was a very, you know, deadly serious time back then. And he said, he's like, "Yeah, it's all right." He said, "You know, but I'm not going to be there long." That's all he said. I didn't even question him after that. He was like, "I'm not going to be there long." And I didn't know what he meant. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know what was actually in the agreement as far as his regular contract versus him signing the power of attorney versus that little 5-page contract that he had did with Death Row. I didn't know any of that information, right? But what I did know, as far as knowing the business and knowing how the business works, is I know that you can't leave one label and go to another label who's distributed by the label that you're leaving from, and there not be any kind of financial transaction, right? And so that's what, you know, made it suspicious to me. I'm like, yo, he under Interscope, and I said to myself, well, Interscope is, you know, kind of Death Row's parent company. So what would be the benefit was my thing. And so that's what spawned me to ask him that question. and like I said, and he said, and when I asked him, I was like, yo, you know, you like being on death row? And he was like, you know, he was like, it's all right, you know what I mean? He said, but I ain't gonna be there long. You know, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't try to read into what that meant, you know what I mean? I just left it at that. I was like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Because you don't know, I'm not knowing he gonna die like almost 30-some days or get shot some 30-some days later. I'm just asking a fundamental music industry, record company business question in regards to like, yo, how did you manage to go, you know, you was with Interscope. And so now everybody understands that. And like I said, when I first came to California, right, from Maryland, like I said, you know, the first person that I went to the studio with, went to their studio, we didn't do any music, but the first person that I went to their studio and chopped it up with him was QD3, and which is Quincy Jones's son. So, you know, like I said, and then I was introduced to him by my cousins. There was somebody my cousin was dating, and she lived over in the jungle. You know what I mean? For all the people who are familiar with the jungle in California, and he had a studio like down at the bottom of the hill in this like strip mall type deal. And yeah, and we chopped it up. And after that, the second person that I met in the music business, who was very powerful and influential, and he was part of the we all in the same gang thing, was my man Mike Conception. You know what I mean? And so yeah, those were two people that I met. So like I said, when I tell you what I tell you, you know, I don't need to be you know, just, you know, putting it out there. But like I said, for the people who knew it was up, yeah, Warner Brothers wasn't gonna let Tupac get away. So yeah, they had an $80 million multimedia deal on the table for Tupac after he had got finished those 3 albums under his initial Interscope record deal. And yeah, so that's how that went down basically. Your boy DELRAY, Straight Game.